Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to the channel. If you're a newbie, welcome back if you're a returning visitor. Thank you, new and old, for being part of my journey. If you're new to the channel, you won't know that I put time in descriptions into the body or the description so you can jump to the areas of interest for you. I do it with all of my videos. First of all, I'd like to apologise for not loading a video last week. That was actually down to health reasons, and I'll talk about that a little further in the video as we go through. But what it means is today I probably will be talking about a lot more stuff because I didn't do last week's yarning. Anyway, wherever I'm going with this, and it will unfold as we go forward, I just want to invite you, remind you, if you're new to the channel as well, just let you know, I invite everybody to leave a comment, to leave their thoughts. None of us are the full bottle on everything. The more we interact with each other, the more we can actually grow the pool of knowledge. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the video. Oh, before I do, I just want to say, look, if you do find something of interest where I've been able to help you to develop and expand your own knowledge, not only do I invite you to comment and feedback, but also could you please give us a thumbs up just to keep me motivated. Motivation is really important for me at the moment because obviously I've been struggling with a few health issues. So it just helps to keep me proactive and creating content for everybody. This particular slide I actually created to be added last week because I didn't do last week's yarning, of course. And I like to start all of my videos with a little bit of acknowledgement and gratitude for the blessings that come my way during the week. And what happened, I still am grateful for this actually, because I've got kookaburras that regularly come by. And of course, their laughter is very uplifting, and it was really important for me over the last couple of weeks because we in Perth have had the most dreadful weather. It has been raining consistently and it's been very bleak. And so to actually see these birds that hang around where I live, it just helps to make me feel lighter and brighter. And we're actually coming towards the end of winter. We'll be going into spring soon. So I'm not just grateful for the kookaburra, I'm actually grateful because I got to see, this is a bit crass really, I got to see that spring was on its way because of bird behaviour, shall we say. It kind of reminded me we're going to have some, they're building nests, shall we say. So procreation is underway, which is a good sign that spring is going to be here soon. Now, ideally, I would have talked about this slide, and its content was actually put down for last week as well. I'm still going to do it because it actually comes through from doing the last tarot and tea, where I was having a conversation with somebody, and it's relevant certainly for what's been going on with me as well. I think the week before I said I would touch on why does healing energy work sometimes and not at other times. So in the first instance, it's why does, I guess to compare it, why have I remained ill when I know that I've got all these access to healing energy, and why have I managed or struggled to manage my health symptoms? Well, it's going to be different for every person. So I will mention a couple of reasons. It could be that from a physical perspective, and I believe this is the case, that with the shingles, I've got the immune disorder, and people that I've spoken to that suffer from autoimmune conditions, things like shingles actually do tend to linger, and they can linger for up to 8 weeks, and they can certainly have some very harsh impact, shall we say, over the long term, and more significant. Is that the word that I'm trying to think of? Look, basically, because I got mine on my face, it went into my ear. It didn't go into my eyes, but it was certainly down my face, my mouth, in my gums. It was pretty horrendous, actually. So what I've been left with is some neuropathy and a lot of fatigue. So then the other thing is, well, why would somebody be born with an autoimmune condition to start with? Well, in the first instance, mine is genetic. It comes through the DNA, shall we say. But why would we do that? Well, I'm a believer that it's part of my divine plan to experience and have this disorder, and to manage it, and to be able to go on and function despite there is this physical obstacle, shall we say. So, of course, this is personal. And also, because I believe, I have my faith system, I believe that we pick our partners, our parents, actually not so much our partners, we can do, but definitely the families that we're born into to have these conditions. So I would have to say it's part of my divine plan to experience it, but not to allow it to influence and detract from my capacity to achieve my life purpose, shall we say. And the other thing is too, it could be karma related, because if we follow or pursue the belief system that I have, it is that we're born with past life karma that has to be worked through. So it might be from that. But I also don't lose sleep about it, in that it is what it is. We accept what we've got and we've worked with what we've got. Other times it quite simply might be that we're not receptive. We might be putting up blocks and barriers to receiving the healing energy. It's going to be different and individual for each person. So where I've learned to live with my autoimmune condition for quite, number of decades now, over the last few weeks, actually probably heading up to 8 or 9 now, I've actually really struggled with the health, and that means that I've been fatigued, I've had difficulty getting out of bed, and I spoke to people. I said, look, I get wellness windows, and I was trying to work on the YouTube content when I had a wellness window. So yeah, I don't have a firm answer for why it works and sometimes it doesn't, but this is why I say just be open to receive and accept that it is what it is, And I also think anyway, quite frankly, that although I've experienced, say, the shingles, and it has been difficult, because of the placement of it, it didn't actually go behind my eye, and I haven't lost my hearing. So I consider that to be a blessing, Now, speaking about health, I'm going to give you a little bit of a health update here. Everything's positive. I'm really pleased. I'm happier and I'm getting better. But the other thing I thought was, this is why when you see my crystal videos and any types of videos about healing I put up, I always say, do not disengage from your doctor, okay? Because we have a physical body, and to ignore the medical treatment plans, quite often we can compound it. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm saying this is the approach that I take. And I also am a believer that, if you've got a physical health condition, for example, it's a bit like asking for a miracle and then ignoring it, because obviously a lot of the time it's only a simple thing that needs to be done to actually regain your physical health, for example. I think about these things a lot, and as I do these videos, and I saw one video where I put up, and it's a crystal that's recommended for snake bites. Well, I can tell you, here in Australia, if I got bitten by a snake, I wouldn't be saying, hang on, forget the anti-venin, I've got my crystal here, let's work with that. We've got so many things that can be fatal that you just don't muck around with them. You use the crystals as a complement. But anyway, going back to my health update, I've got to have a laugh about this, and I think you will as well. So putting the shingles aside, and this is obviously something that you get if you've had chickenpox as a child, putting that aside for a moment, what happened maybe 5 weeks ago, when I went to the doctor last time with the shingles, we had mentioned that I needed to go on a new medication, and he made me a prescription, which I took. And then when I got home, of course, I've started that, and there was a problem here. And it was because I thought the new medication was a replacement medication, but it actually wasn't. So I learned the other day when I went to the doctor, I had to go back a couple of days ago. And he said, no, you should never have stopped that medication. You take this one in conjunction with what you've got. And it was one of those moments where we just looked at each other, and he said, how long have you not been taking this medication? I said, about 4 weeks, actually. And we both looked at each other and said, well, that explains the fatigue and the exhaustion that I've had, and the difficulty getting out of bed on top of the shingles. So I'm back on that medication, and it's absolutely fascinating. I've noticed within myself that now that I've become aware of that, all of a sudden, because I'm back on this new medication, it should take a couple of weeks to stabilise within my system. I say new, but it's actually the old one. I all of a sudden feel better in my mind. Not that it's a psychosomatic condition, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, yay, and I have been extremely productive. But the other thing I thought that I would share with you, because this is just a bit of a waffle, Okay. If you've looked at my content on the channel, you'll know that I've got a numerology playlist. I absolutely love numerology. Well, for the first time when I was talking to the doctor, I can't remember how it came up, but we were discussing how your birth numbers and day numbers can reveal an awful lot of stuff about a person. Of course, he gave me, because he is a man of science, he's given me the raised eyebrow, like, yeah. And I said to him, I said, look, I tested it. I've got a couple of theories when it comes to mental breakdown, because I've worked in psychiatric facilities and that. And I said, and I actually tested it out. I did the ruling numbers and the day numbers on all the residents that were in the facility. And I said, and it actually did uphold my theory. And he looked at me, he gave me that quizzical look that you get. And he's looked at me and he's gone, really? And I said, yes. And I said, well, for example, I said, tell me your birthday. And I said, don't give me your birth, like the whole lot, because I want to respect his privacy. I don't need to know the year he was born if we're just having a chat, for example. So he told me his day number and he told me the month that he was born. And I went, oh, that's interesting, as you do. And he's looked at me and I said, well, straight off the bat, I said, I can see now why you own your medical facility instead of just being an employer there. He's a young man, by the way. He's actually been very progressive and career oriented, if you like. He's gone from being a doctor at this medical facility to now actually owning it and being an employer. I said, I can see there in that number, this is why you've been so successful. And I said, but the other thing is, I said, you're psychic. I forgot to mention to you, the reason why this all came up too is I know he's alternative. He does yoga and that kind of thing. And he looked at me and goes, oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. I said, no, you are. And I said, but it's probably latent. I said, because you are a man of science, and they're not very open usually to embracing these psychic gifts. And he said to me, well, if they are, they would be latent. And I went, oh. And then anyway, in the course of my visit, his mouth fell open and he goes, oh my God, maybe I am. He said, I just realised I can walk into a room. And he said, and it's been happening more often. And he said, and I already know things about people. I said, yeah, that's intuitive. I said, so anyway, I just thought I would share that to you. It's just fun. So summarising here, because I've gone down that waffle, look, I'm starting to feel better and I'm starting to get back on track, and I say thank God for that. Now, this reflection was actually prompted by the last tarot and tea as well. And I think it's really important, if people are into psychic predictions and this kind of thing, that they actually keep this in mind, which is that a prediction is not set in concrete. You've got free will, and therefore it is a matter of being aware and paying attention to signs as part of making your decisions, because you can always, because I deliver what I consider to be truthful ones, I read cards upright reverse. So if there is a message that can be a bit worrisome, I tell people that, look, you've got to take it. Life is a series of ups and downs. It doesn't mean that if it comes up in the predictive aspect of a reading that it's definitely going to happen. It's basically just a caution. And the other thing is that you get information on how to manage these challenges when they come up. But where it sort of became relevant for me after the last tarot and tea was because somebody had asked me to do a demonstration on them of how to do cards, which I did. And I was able to pick up in the course of doing this reading that they actually suffered from extreme anxiety. They had some form of trauma, PTSD. I don't go in too far, certainly when I'm in a group situation. But as far as the reading goes, it showed that they were in conflict about a person and a relationship. And part of this, I believe, was actually because the person themselves was actually, in the downward phase. We all have ups and downs. Sometimes we're nice, sometimes we're a little bit irritable or short-tempered. Relationships go through the good patches, then they go through the ones where you've got to struggle to stay in them, that kind of thing. So it was in one of those challenging parts of the relationship. And what I saw was that it was being tested. And anyway, that the reminder. So these comments are not related to that particular reading, but it's related to the fact that if you've got a history of, say, PTSD and having been betrayed by people, because that's usually where PTSD sits, it's easy to become anxious and project your fears and lack of trust onto other people who are actually trustworthy. And then what happens also is sometimes, I believe actually all the cards come out for a reason, and that includes the betrayal card, because it helps to actually cope with somebody breaching your trust if it occurs. Okay, so if, right? And the thing is, though, people being people, if they see a card that comes up that basically says your trust is going to be tested, or somebody's going to let you down in the near future, the advice is that you actually need to balance your emotional reactions and to just step back, create some personal space for yourself before you actually respond to whatever the hurt is. Then they can develop this attitude of basically looking at everybody around them and squinting their eyes. Is it going to be you? Is it going to be you? And this is so unhelpful. It's destructive to your good and healthy and positive relationships. And the bottom line is, if somebody is going to break your trust, and that means you can't see it coming, okay? So there's no point even trying to look at people and establish, will they be the one that breaks your trust? Because if you knew it, they wouldn't be breaking your trust. That's the simple outcome there. So it's a case of just accept that information, park it, be aware, monitor your own comfort and discomfort levels, and try and be a little bit discerning. And if you are unsure, ask questions and just go on your own gut instinct, I think, but don't try and make anything happen. So as far as the Tarot and Tea goes, anyway, speaking of that, I have actually published the next event. That one's up for September if you want to go and register. I think I've put the link up in the video. I'm not sure. Otherwise, ask me and I will pop it in the description. But anyway, so that one's gone up. What I'm noticing is there seems to be a fairly consistent number of people that book, and I've got capacity for 25 people at these events. And I allocate 20 tickets, and then I allow for wait listing on it. What I have noticed is that I regularly have 20 people booked, and sometimes the wait list starts to fill, but I never actually have the full 20 there, which, just so you know, I don't really mind, because I've known for years that if you have an event, you always overbook because there's always going to be no shows, and go shows. So basically, where I'm going with this is for those people in Perth, Western Australia that are listening to the videos and on the channel, feel free to turn up on the night, but maybe send me a message through the website. If you've got my business card or my phone number, feel free to contact me and let me know. The reason why I say this is because I don't think I've ever had a full house. I end up consistently with about 10, sometimes maybe 15, if there's a few last minute add-ons, you know what I mean? But there will be room for you if you wanted to turn up on the night, but please let me know, okay? And for those people that are booking and they're not showing up, can you please let us know if something comes up? That would be wonderful. Thank you. So as far as the web development goes, oh my golly gosh, I've actually managed to make some progress instead of just talking about it. As I said, finding out about the medication has had a really positive effect on my mood state and being able to plan and step forward with this. So where we're at, most of the spiritual hygiene content has been completed, but I do still need to put up the centering and grounding activities. The aura content, which is protection and shielding, has also been put up as well. So you should be able to go, I've published it, by the way. You should be able to go to the website now and have a look. I'm still doing things, though it's still potentially not user friendly. If you notice things that I need to fix up, by all means, let me know, because the intention is I might have to split that aura page to make it more user friendly. It might take a little while to load because there's a lot of content on it, but there is a site map there as well. So I've got to check out, put in some links, put in some buttons and that kind of stuff on the aura content. And then I think we're completed with that. Thank God, I say. So as far as the other content goes, I'm pretty sure I've done the sacred breath content. But even if I haven't, there's a link to a video on this YouTube channel which actually explains it in more detail. spiritual hygiene is almost completed, but because it's actually got different components, I've got to do a little bit more. Like I need to revisit the centering and the grounding, and also the chakra content. Clearing the chakras, balancing them, energizing, that kind of thing. So they will be my next priorities for the website. But at the moment, what I've been doing over the last couple of days is, because I was falling behind, I'm actually yesterday and today really focused on the YouTube content, trying to get because there's a lot involved. Actually, there's a lot more than people would think. For every video that I make, especially when it comes to the crystals, I, of course, like to do the shorts and put up the fairies. So I've got to be a little bit creative there as well. But anyway, yes, look, I'm working on a number of videos at the moment, and the quotes, just so that they're all up there, and that will allow me to focus my attention more onto the website to get that where I envision it to be. So in regard to the crystal Magicke, just updating that, I can't remember what I've told you of what I've bought and what I haven't, what I've had arrive. But either way, I haven't had any arrive in the last week or so. I've actually decided that I'm going to stop buying at the moment until I actually start selling some of them. But yeah, I've certainly got a variety of them, and that should motivate me to get on track with doing some of these videos. Now, the other thing too is I can't remember if I told you, I did have my clear midnight lace obsidian that has arrived. I haven't used it yet. And so where the intention was that I would put that video up sooner rather than later, I've actually decided I want to get on top of my YouTube content so that then I can actually create that space and feel comfortable creating that space, and to sit down and actually work with it before I actually complete the video on it and load it on YouTube. In my messy state of disorganisation over the last couple of weeks, you will still have managed to see black obsidian go up. So I'm just rehashing now what you can find on the Crystal Magicke playlist. So you will have also seen, and I can't actually remember now as I look at this slide whether or not I called it blue sandstone or blue goldstone. I think I changed it when I loaded it to being called blue goldstone, because that's one of the things that can be quite confusing. Anyway, that video has gone up. For people who are crystal lovers, I understand if you're repelled by things like goldstone, because it is a synthetic crystal. However, I actually quite like blue goldstone, and there are some crystals that are synthetic that I guess they challenge my preconceived notions that if it's man-made, then it's going to have nothing. But the thing is, I think what I've learned is if it's a man-made and synthetic crystal, if its components include things like mica, which goldstone does, or the blue one does, I believe, then it's going to carry the healing attributes of the mica. But the other thing is too that I'm very much into the healing power of colour. So for me, this is an incredibly coloured crystal that provides the healing energy that way as well. So for me, it's the power of blue, I guess, mixed with the power of mica with blue goldstone. Now, speaking of goldstone, it comes in a range of colours, and it includes this reddish orangey type brown, if that's what you want to call it. It includes this type as well. So currently I've just finished off this video as far as the transcript goes, and I will record the audio on this later today so that it can be published, so that you can look at it if you're interested in goldstone. This is another one of them. The difference between this one, I believe, and the blue goldstone is that the orangey reddy goldstone here actually has copper. So in this instance, the way I approach things, it would be I'm looking at the power of the colour orange or terracotta and what does that bring, as well as the healing properties of the copper that is inside of it. But anyway, this one should be available to view probably Tuesday this week. So because of my time management, I imagine at this point in time that we'll probably be looking at blue lace agate for Thursday this week to be loaded, because, well, to be honest, I'm working on that one right now, and Yeah, I think this one will be complete. It's one that I've actually worked with a lot in the past. It's actually up there as one of my favourite crystals, and quite frankly, it's become very, very expensive. But I would imagine that that one's going to be published on Thursday, and then the following week we will be looking at the other crystals. And I just realised as I do this, I have to stop and start because I forgot to put a slide in. So I'll just do that, and I'll be right back. So, a couple of quick adjustments here, and I am back. Okay, so then the following week, which will be, oh, I can't remember now without looking at it. My intention is to load the video on the Midnight Lace Obsidian, after which, I've trialed and tested it over the weekend once I've got on top of my tasks. And from there, this was the slide I forgot to add, but anyway, we'll be talking about Phenacite, or some people call it Phenakite because sometimes it's spelled with a C and sometimes with a K, but whether you call it Phenacite or Phenakite, I'm going to be doing a video on that. Now, I have had the good fortune of actually using this many years ago, but I definitely need to re-add it to my collection, and I'm pretty sure that will be an interesting video for you. And that being said, I forgot to mention in my gratitude that actually I'm very, very grateful for my adult son at the moment, because he arrived from the eastern states and stayed with me for about a week. And this is at a time when obviously I've been recovering from health issues. He was such a blessing to me. Ladies, mothers out there, my son, I wondered if he'd had a personality transplant. He has never been so caring in his whole life. I know that probably sounds a bit rough. What I'm talking about is my son came over, he cooked dinner every night, he even washed the dishes, he wouldn't let me do them, and he just helped to get me organised. He even went out into the garden and did some gardening for me without me having to ask. And this is why I'm like, he's normally a lovely boy, but he just went out on a limb literally this time. So he was a real blessing, and I'm very grateful for him. Having said that, I'm going to, at this point in time, say thank you very much for being being part of my journey. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care of yourselves, and I shall catch you on the next video. It's all onwards and upwards from here. Take care. Bye-bye for now.